If you were in sales, there's a 99.7% chance you have watched this sales call recording from Jordan Belfort himself. But it is impossible that you could have picked up on all the little things he did, the psychology behind the questions he's asking. Which is why today I am going to break down this holy grail of sales videos and explain the psychology behind what he's actually doing, and even give some feedback on what I would do today in this day and age of sales. And if you're wondering, why should I trust some fucking kid on YouTube? Well, it's because Jordan Belfort himself did. He brought me in to train his B2C reps on how to leverage psychology in sales. Plus, I trained some of his sales reps. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Andres Contreras. And in a 3-year period, I went from being a normal high school kid, just going to math class, doing the normal shit, to 3 years later, running my own company to $800,000 a month at 55% margins and training multiple reps to their first $100,000 commission months. So with that being said, let's get into it.
Hello.
Hey, how are you, Jordan Belfort?
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for taking the meeting.
Thanks for coming in.
Okay, already in general, in sales conversations, you do not want to say, oh, thank you for taking the meeting, because what does it imply? You are lower status than the person above you. Who do you think? People who are above you. And so as soon as you say that, your status is immediately lower, and now they're in a position of control. In a B2B setting, it's a little bit different sometimes. You can get away with doing more stuff like that just because if they are a fucking Fortune 500 CEO, you need to have some level of respect for them or they will get offended and their ego triggered. And so like, it's okay, but in general, especially if you're selling B2C, definitely do not do that.
Great. Having a good day?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
So far, so good. Sorry to do this. I've only got about 20 minutes.
No problem. I get it.
Hopefully we can get to the bottom of things.
Perfect. So real quick, I guess the way I usually work is I kind of want to know about you, your company, what kind of challenges you're facing right now, what's right in your business, what's wrong in your business, and based on that, what we do here at LMK is we kind of tailor make our strategies to directly suit our clients' needs. We have 3 areas of excellence we focus on. Mm-hmm. Capital markets, hedging strategies, commodities hedging, finance for your business. B, investment banking, meaning if you're looking to go public, raise any money for specific projects, both foreign and domestic. And lastly, of course, asset management, your land, your trucks, and trying to maximize your value there. But again, that's just broad areas. I look to each client kind of as a unique situation, and we try to kind of tailor that in. So if you had to
So the amount of detail he gives there makes it seem a lot more complex. And so because of that, it justifies him then therefore asking all these specific questions he's about to. And so because it seems more complex, it's like, oh, well, I need more details in order to know what's best for you. Great, now I can ask the question.
Say one thing right now in your business that was kind of like giving you the most problem, what would it be? In terms of growth, like stopping you from growing as fast as you could.
It's probably uncertainty around China. You know, we're a business that's really got its history very much rooted in Australia. Mm-hmm. We've had some experience in Singapore and Hong Kong.
Right, different markets.
China, yeah, China's really unknown to us.
Right.
And you know that does keep me awake at night a little bit.
In the sense of that, obviously, to fill the demand, you have to kind of grow a certain amount of or produce a certain amount of crop, and then milk, and then you're not sure if they're going to buy or not. So there's an issue of you know, a overproduction versus making sure they're going to buy at the end of the day. Is that what it is?
Well, yeah, there's that, and I guess the question over setting up facilities in China, whether we go down that path or whether we can continue to do it out of Australia. Mm-hmm. I believe we do need to set up some facilities in China, but that requires capital.
You have nothing there right now at all?
No.
Okay. And have you investigated opening up anything at all in China right now, or just really in the early stages of it?
Oh, no, look, it's...
So think about the flow of a sales call. In like impact framework terms, he has now gone through intent, which is like, what's the main outcome we want from this conversation? And now he's going to current strategies. So like, what are you doing to be able to accomplish that outcome? The reason this is so important, you need to think about a sales call like a funnel. So at the very top, it's very, very broad. We're getting like an overarching goal, like what's the main thing we're trying to accomplish? And then he says, oh, well, going to China as like a market. And so now it's a little bit more narrow. And then he goes into like, well, what are you doing to accomplish that? And then you go into pain. Every single time it gets more and more and more narrow, and you're essentially cutting off all this fat from like the conversation until at the very end, the only logical conclusion is buying. And so you never give him space, and you're making it more and more tight and specific throughout the call. So that's essentially what he's doing.
I've been meaning to talk to my banker about. We've kind of discussed around the edges before, but we haven't really talked about it in depth.
Right. Let me ask you a question. I was doing some more research on the industry, and one of the things that stuck out is that, in fact, there's still a massive growth potential for you here domestically in Australia, right? You're really scratching the surface domestically. Yeah. You have a good market share, but obviously the market's growing here pretty much, 15, 16% a year. Yeah. There's still so you also kind of building the current market share as well?
Absolutely. We've certainly got strong customer relationships here in Australia, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for growth here.
Right.
I think we've got a unique opportunity in China because of our accreditation standards, and the Chinese are very...
Which is not easy to get.
No, I think we might be the only...
So that is fucking genius if you picked up on that. He essentially went, well, why can't we just expand more in the US Why? He doesn't actually want him to expand the US, or in Australia, I mean. But as soon as he asks that question, the guy has to what? Justify why expanding into China is so important. And what does he immediately do? He goes, oh, well, I think we're in a unique position inside the Chinese market. And he starts justifying why it's so important to them. And so he's selling himself on why they actually need the thing, rather than Jordan trying to convince him, oh yeah, going to the Chinese market is so important, this and this and that. And so he's making him sell himself in the most subtle fucking way that you would never pick up on.
Company that has it.
Right.
So, we could go very comfortably just focusing on Australia, and that might be the best path. I'm not sure, but the China opportunity just is dangling out there, I guess.
Right. I know. It's kind of like I do, not just obviously in the organics. I mean, pretty much every business is high tech, low tech. And everyone's China's like this kind of, this 900-pound gorilla in every conversation. And the idea, I think that's the question, the challenge everyone faces. We know we got to go there. There's a massive market there, but how do we get there in a way which is basically risk averse, but allows us to kind of test the waters, and if we hit it, to kind of expand quickly and capitalize.
Yeah, you're right. And the risk thing for us is really important. I mean, while we've got some ambitious plans, we don't want to take on too much risk.
So he does this unique thing that in psychology, it's very similar to like a doctor. So when you go to a doctor's office, they ask you all these questions, everything else, and they go like, this is what you have. And because they know more about your problem than even you know about it, they know more about the problem that you have than even you know. They can fucking diagnose you and everything else. You assume, well, they must also have the solution. And so by him going, oh, so essentially what you're saying is X, and then adding all of this context that is correct, but the guy never said, makes him be like, holy shit, he knows what he's talking about, and therefore respect him and put him on a pedestal in terms of how he views him, his status.
Right. No, makes sense. And in terms of you, where do you fit in with the company? In terms of what's your what's your kind of division of responsibilities? Do you manage the entire company, or how does it work?
Yeah. So I'm a major shareholder of the company, and I manage the operations day to day. So I'm very hands-on on the operational side of the company.
And how about the brothers, the guys that those are the two?
One of my brothers is quite involved, but probably not quite as involved as I am. Right. He looks after some more of the marketing and sales elements.
Right.
And then my father still has an active role in an advisory sense, and a minor shareholder. And
right.
But it's mainly operationally run by myself.
Got it. And how about the actual? Do you have a CFO that reports to you, or?
Look, we have a business manager, and he looks after a lot of the finances, a lot of the accounting and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I guess he's like our CFO.
Right. So now you're basically fully integrated in the sense that your own farms, right? You're actually growing this stuff, processing it, and then.
What did he just do? He figured out who the decision makers are in a very, very subtle way. So that was like the equivalent of like asking, what's typically like the decision-making process around like, I guess like a decision like this, when it would come to integrating X, Y, Z. That's like the same question, just worded differently and a little bit more casually and like weeded into conversation. That way it doesn't trigger as much resistance. But now he knows that this guy is essentially the only decision maker. And so now he can close this guy in this conversation rather than having to like push it off for another meeting or just using this as like a two-call process.
Shipping it out.
That's right.
Just China or distributing domestically.
Yep.
And would your plan be if you were going to, in China, let's talk about China for a second, because I personally think that's a massive market. I'm a big believer in the China story going forward, okay? So would you be looking to develop the products here and then ship them there raw and process them in China, or actually have land in China and grow them in China?
The hard thing with organic products, especially in the dairy industry, is that because we can't use as many preservatives, it's harder to keep them for longer. They perish a bit quicker. So we have a disadvantage, I guess, if we don't. I believe if we don't move some of our facilities to China, and we'd certainly be able to get fresher products, and we are about fresh products by having some facilities over there. But then there's, we're not familiar with that land. It'll take a bit of time to get up the experience curve over there. So. There are some natural advantages to being there, but there's also some disadvantages.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Have you guys considered actually trying to partner up with someone that's purchase an existing small producer for organics in China and kind of then use your technology? This way, you have sort of a stable foothold already there, and then grow their business versus trying to start from scratch at all.
Look, I've certainly played with the idea. Very cautious about it, just because we're a family business, built a lot on trust. Organics companies don't tend to collaborate all that well. They tend to kind of keep a lot of their secrets to themselves. But I mean, I'm not close to the idea, but I just have some reservations.
I mean, the reason I say this is because one of the things that we do and we specialize in is we're, as a global merchant banker, we have strategic alliances all over the world and especially in China. Yeah. So one of the things we could do is actually introduce you to kind of various people along every element of the supply chain, whether it's simply purchasing an organic, concern, or simply, getting you in touch with the right people for trucking, right people for any part of production, and of course distribution. So kind of to help you there, just to kind of put you in touch with the right people operationally, if that would help you kind of make a decision, at least give you more of a knowledge base to what's really you need to do to get yourself into China without, kind of stumbling and falling on your face.
Look, I mean, networks like that will obviously be useful.
Right.
This idea of
So that's interesting. I'm not sure exactly why he would do that. What I would have done is, beforehand, I would have done research to figure out like what type of company it is and like what personality type like the CEO has, et cetera, and be like, okay, it's a family-owned business. I can look at how they made decisions or like how many employees they've hired over time or like how they've scaled with revenue, how aggressive they are with growth. And then based on that, be like, okay, they would probably be open to this idea or they probably wouldn't be. And then I can change the framing. As an example, if I want to bring it up, but I know they're probably not going to be open to it, I could be like, and I'm assuming you guys wouldn't be open to X, Y, Z. Because now if they are open to it, I'm giving them the chance to pull it back in and be like, oh, I guess we would potentially be open to that. But if they're not open to it, now I look like I'm even more on their side. Like I understand them even at a deeper level. And Jordan kind of notices this midway, which is why he pivots into like, or use them as a knowledge base. Meaning you guys at least have them for information if you're not going to do a deal with them. And then that adds a perceived value to it.
getting into a partnership with another company, I'm not sure. I mean, is that the sort of thing you think?
No, I mean, listen, here's what I do. I'm a believer in what you weigh all your options, right? I totally get that, like, there's a certain culture that made you guys what you are, right? And one of the great risks about China is it's a very different culture. Okay, so there's two issues that you face when you go to China. Number one, okay, you have to say, well, is my culture going to play well in that country? Because some things that just work here don't work well in China, right? And the other thing is, yes, my culture in fact will work well in China, but there's some sort of like disconnect between the way you think you're saying it to them and the way they're perceiving it. So it's important, whatever you do, what I would recommend, whether you want to control every last ounce of the supply chain, you need to have local Chinese people there who know the market, who know the people, who know the kind of the social demeanor there to make sure that the message that has been so successful here in Australia gets out in China. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. I mean, what do you think would be some of the cultural barriers for a business like mine?
So this is something I would have done instead. Instead of going like, oh, it's very important that you have these people, because as soon as you go like, it is very important, what can that trigger in the person's brain? Oh, well, like, how do I know if it's important? Like, he's a sales guy, he's trying to sell me something. So instead, if you ask a no-based question where you explain, like, oh, there's typically a lot of communication barriers that we notice between like the Chinese and the American people. And so like sometimes you get offended on accent, like all kinds of stuff like that. I guess, who do you have in place now, if anybody, to like make sure that you guys kind of have a local contact in order to make sure that like all the communication is actually being communicated correctly? And now they have to go, oh, well, we don't actually have anybody. That's kind of what we were looking for, which builds what? His value.
Fine. Moving into China.
I think that number one, it used to be like that China had this whole big, like, the sage white man, we want to know what the white man is doing. That was a, big thing that when they felt like they were behind. Now, there's been like almost a tip where they feel like they're the emerging dominant power and almost like they are the wise ones and they know it all. So yet they, in truth, know, of course, they don't know everything, right? So there's a sort of cultural gap of you being able to educate them, but at the same time making them think it's their own idea. Like, it's like giving them the facts so they come to the conclusion you wanted them to come to in the first place. And it doesn't happen so much, it doesn't do much with like production, but with marketing. Okay, and as you guys know, you're not just producers, you're marketers. Okay, so you need to have kind of both elements of that equation wrapped up. Now, again, like obviously since I'm a banker, I'm not in the organic food business, but one thing I do know is there are certain core distinctions that run through every industry, whether it's your industry, whether it's computers, whether you're selling automobiles. Okay, so what we try to do, again, we have a client like you. We don't look at things, hey, they're organic, that's a separate. It's some things that are global. Like, for instance, Mary Donovan, who you know, right? One of the things we did for Mary is we were able to save her a tremendous amount of money domestically and overseas on our commodities hedging, okay, and on some of our currency swaps that she was doing. And the ways we did that is because we understand there are certain peculiarities to her industry, but at the same time, there are also some commonalities that apply to all industries. So we're able to come up with a model that directly suited her needs that would address. She has similar concerns in the sense that she produces too, a little bit different in a different industry, but she's producing, not sure what she's going to sell. So it's important that she actually has access to her supply chain, but doesn't end up stuck with 2 months of inventory, right? And, which is even worse for you because it's perishable, right? But I guess you need to be kind of ultra just-in-time inventory strategies, right? To drive yourself to market. So I think for you, listen, I know over the long term we can do a lot of stuff for you, but I think I did best.
So he just essentially suited in like a testimonial, like brought it in live. That way he would feel like, oh my God, I can actually trust these people. They've done something like this before.
By just starting off doing one thing for you. Okay, and then let me just start and try to do one thing for you really, really well. Like, I don't want to interfere what you do with Titan. I'm sure they're great and everything. I know them. They're a very good, reputable company. Respect them. But we specify in something that's a little bit different. And one of the first things I'd love to try is to take a look at exactly what you're doing with your commodities.
Think about what he's doing.
And the currency stuff. With the stuff you're doing both in Singapore, Hong Kong, and in China.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to get in there right away, straight away, and I want to go in there and give me a shot to beat it. Like, let me work, give me 30 days, I'll do my trade small, start small, don't stop what you're doing. Put a small amount of-
Oh, he's minimizing the barrier to entry. He's essentially going, all you have to do is fucking 30 days. It's only 1 month. I asked you for one thing. It's like making it seem like it's very small, like, oh, it's just a little commitment. Like, it's very easy. We're going to start it small. The more you can lower the barrier to entry, the easier it is for the person to say yes. And then from there, once you have your foot in the door, then you can expand it and cross-sell them, upsell them, do all kinds of shit with them.
Your trades through me, and then analyze in 30 days the percentage gain. And if I'm even half as good as I say, I believe you'll be moving all your business over to me after that. That sound fair enough?
Sound fair enough?
I mean, I'm not particularly worried about where we're at in that space. I mean, what particularly would you want to be doing?
Well, let me ask you a question. First of all, does the overall idea in terms of, of us advising you, not just in one area, but all areas, make sense to you that we could be an asset over the long? Does that appeal to you?
Okay, so this is such an important concept. People get lost in specifics. So for example, if you're ever on a sales call and people start going like, oh, what time is this coaching call? Or how many specific one-on-ones do I get? Or how much time do they last? All people are doing when they ask you those questions is they're looking for reasons not to do it. They're not gonna find a reason to do it, because if not, they would just assume that it's already good and do it anyways. So they're looking for reasons to not do it. And so you can never let them get stuck in the specifics. You have to take it broader. So that's why right here, he goes like, okay, let's zone out for a second. Does the general idea make sense? So an example of this is like in a coaching industry, if somebody goes like, oh, what time are the group calls that I can attend? What does it matter for? Like if it's at an inconvenient time for you, let's say it was at 5 a.m., does that mean you just quit and you give up? Or would you like find a way to do it anyways because it is that important to you? Oh, I'd find a way to do it anyways. So like let's use coaching as an example. Let's say the prospect goes, oh, well, what time are the group calls? Well, does it matter? Like let's say it was at 5 a.m. Most inconvenient time for you, go to bed at 11 p.m., so you're only sleeping 6 hours. Does that mean you just don't go? Like, what are you gonna do? And they have to go, oh no, I guess I would go. And if they say, oh, well, I wouldn't go. Okay, so like the 6 versus 7 hours of sleep is important enough for you to like not wanna get to the 20K a month? And if they say, oh, well, then I wouldn't do it. Okay, so the difference between the 6 and 7 hours of sleep is more important to you than like the 20K a month? Am I hearing that correctly? And then they go like, oh, well, like, I guess it's not. Okay, so like timing aside, what do you feel actually puts you in the best position possible in order to like make sure you're actually like learning the skills getting to the 20K a month? And then right there, they have to go like, oh, well, yeah, I guess I would do it. I guess I would show up at 5 a.m. Okay, so then the real question is like, call times aside for a second, what do you feel puts you in a better position to like actually learn the skill? Like having those calls or not having them? Oh, well, obviously having them. So what do you feel you should do? And then from there, it's very easy. Now that's obviously B2C coaching offers. So you can be a lot more direct. Here it's a B2B setting, so he has to be a little bit more like inconspicuous or indirect about it, but he's essentially doing the same thing.
Well, I guess it certainly does. It just depends on, what it's going to cost us.
Right. Well, exactly. And of course, cost always in the end comes down to it, but it's not just so much cost, it's also the value you get for the cost, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things we pride ourselves on, okay, just as a company, and the true beauty of what we do is that every transaction that we do with you, okay, we're looking always at two things. A, to keep costs down as much as possible, anything, whether it's brokerage, hedging, helping you purchase an asset you didn't think you could afford, helping you expand into a new market, going public perhaps, okay, getting a bridge loan in a foreign market. Of course, we always look at cost, okay, but we also look at the 3 to 5 years down the road, okay, because sometimes the cheapest money is not the best money. So, of course, we'll lay both options out to you. I'll say, listen, you can do it this way and save yourself, 3 basis points, or you can maybe pay 2 basis points more, but you'll be in alliance with the top people in China, okay, that'll be more flexible with terms, and also allow you to grow, a facility let you grow to where exactly, because you don't want to be a $15 million company forever, obviously you want to be a $250 million company, so we look at both the short-term and long. Does that make sense to you? Do you like that program?
I mean, look, in theory it sounds good, but I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like you deal with a lot of big companies, and we're not a huge company. It's a pretty simple business model actually. So I'm just wondering if it's all a bit too much and too complex for us.
Right. Right.
We've run it pretty successfully in the past by following a pretty simple model.
Right.
So yeah, I'm just not sure.
Well, let me say this. I hear what you're saying, and I like to pride myself on being a guy that takes medium-sized companies and turns them into big companies. And that's really how we make our money. You know, all big companies once were medium-sized and once small companies, right?
Yeah.
And the same dynamics that apply to a business at your size is no different for a $50 million or a $500 million company.
Yeah.
It's a different way of thinking. And I think in some levels, and listen, that's why I said to you, I'm not looking to interfere with relationships that you have right now, because I think that a smart business person, you guys are obviously smart, you know what you do well, right? To throw the baby out with the bathwater would be ridiculous. That's why if I came in saying, fire this guy, I don't want that, okay?
Yeah.
What I want to be is
Again, what is he doing? He's minimizing the barrier to entry as much as possible. He's going like, this is actually what I pride myself on. I'm not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We're not going to remove what you're doing now. We're just going to add. And then I'm assuming right here he's going to be like, oh, just one shot, 30 days.
guy. I don't want to be the guy that took you from 0 to 50. I have those people. I want to be the guy that takes you from 50 to 500 million. Okay, in that area, I know I could be a major asset to you, because we can do for you besides, you know, any one trade in commodities and that over the long term in the way of taking you public, providing you bond financing or notes that you need for, you know, overseas transactions. We can be an asset to your company over the long term. And I just personally just, you know, about myself, you know, I pride myself on, you know, holding my clients' hands every step of the way. You know, I deal, as you know, from Mary, only on referral. You know, I'm not a cold calling machine, okay? It's all long-term relationships. And I know this, I'm going to be judged basically on one trade. If I say, hey, let's do some business together, give me a shot for 30 days, and I'm wrong and I stink, you'll fire me as one of your bro. We'll never speak again. We'll shake hands, you know, hey, you know, it didn't work, and that's that, right? And just so you know, my commission on 30 days of business, and this is, I just stood with the firm and the government, I can't take my wife out for lunch in Australia. I'm not getting rich, okay, but I know this. If you see what I could do for you in 1 month, just small, you're not going to get rich or poor, but the percentage gain, okay, you'll see you have a broker that was going to work for you, harder for you, more diligently than anyone ever has. And all I ask is that then, down the road, when I really kind of get into your business and see, you know, the bigger opportunities, you give me a shot bigger and better down the road. That's not fair enough?
He's giving a visualization of like later on when it works, which presupposes what? The fact that it's going to work. The reason you do this is it changes context. Such a subtle thing, but I'll give you an example. If you have somebody with a razor to your throat, you go like, oh shit, that's dangerous. But if it's a barber holding the razor, it's like, oh, well, it's normal. Why? Because what's the only thing that changed? The context. And so the context is he's trying to sell me into buying something versus the context being in the future, we're going to be doing these massive deals. Right now, I'm just giving him one little shot. It's a completely different reaction that the guy's going to have.
What do you think is possible in 30 days? I mean, how much can you do in a month?
Not a question of money. It's a question of percentage savings. In other words, listen, let me ask you a question. Right now, how much are you currently hedging on a monthly basis right now?
I'm not sure on a monthly basis. We're about 77% of our mid-70s% of our debt is unhedged.
Okay.
So I think that means about 22 million of our overall debt is hedged.
22 million is hedged annually.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have about 20 million that's on, you know, about how much, so you said how much is unhedged? About 70% is hedged?
No, unhedged.
Unhedged?
Yeah.
Okay, so about 22 million is hedged?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Okay, so you have about 35 or 40 million unhedged, correct?
No, we've got a lot more than that. We've got about 150 odd million that's unhedged.
I thought you were 50.
No, we've got in terms of our debt.
What's the revenue?
What's our revenue?
I'm talking the
Right.
revenue.
So this year just gone, 27 million.
Okay, right. That's what I say.
27.5 million year just gone.
So here's the thing. See, I look at that just so you know. Okay,
Yeah.
one of the things that a lot of people overlook is that the day-to-day foreign currency exchanges that occur between what you're doing in China and when it comes back to here and vice versa, Singapore, Hong Kong. The biggest, I wouldn't say fraud, but let's say the biggest way for you to get clipped as a businessman is in the foreign currency markets. It's like it's the Wild West there, okay? And you know what we do, okay, is we'll sit you with cost of money. In other words, we don't mark up our trades. We're gonna basically buy and sell your money for you on the exchange in real time, okay? And the amount of money that saves for you, percentage-wise, is staggering. Now, again, I'm not saying you're going to make 10 million extra on your bottom line, but what it will show you, in a very riskless way, it allows me to show you that when you say, hey, I'm doing it this way right now, and this guy came in with a very small transaction and showed me I could save literally 30 or 40% more, you know, annually on this amount of money, that just shows you I'm a guy that knows what I'm doing. And after that, once I kind of earn your trust, then let's kind of talk bigger and better where I can really save you bigger money down the road. We could use that as a benchmark for future business. All I'm asking for is this. One shot, okay, let me just run 30 days, hedging your money, show you how you can kind of navigate through the currency markets here in a more effective, elegant way, and believe me, you'll be very, very impressed.
Sound fair enough?
Yeah, look, I mean, it sounds
God damn it, I fucked it up.
Company, I don't know if you know this, but the farming industry is built very heavily on trust and loyalty.
Totally get it.
The banking relationship I have now has been built up over many years, plus legacy through the family. You know, a lot of farmers get involved with banks, and new organisations, and they're with them through the good times, and then they
Totally get it.
ditch them during the bad times. So I don't know anything about you guys.
Let me ask you a question, honestly. If I've been your broker for the last 3 or 4 years, making you guys money on a consistent basis, I mean, let's say I ran...
So notice, the structure for his frames is he essentially, number one, he disarms them. He lowers it. He goes, I completely understand where you're coming from, or yeah, that makes perfect sense. Then he starts to explain why it's not actually a real objection, why it's not valid. And then you typically get some kind of buy-in, whatever it is, like, oh, does that make sense? Do you agree? Do you see how that'd be helpful? Whatever it is. And then they agree, and then he goes for the reclose. And the reclose is always minimizing it as much as possible. One shot, 30 days, zero risk. We go into this, very small decision, very small trade. It's extremely minimized. Now, the one thing he could add, and I don't know the context of this, so maybe it's like a little bit more of like a cold meeting, and so it's harder for him to pull this off. But essentially, after you do a frame, you always want to consequence it out and make them justify. So for example, if he was explaining the thing that like a lot of companies go into China, into like a foreign market where it's like the Wild West, they have like no clue really what they're doing. And so the mismatch in communication makes it a lot harder with the locals. And so they end up like not being able to play in those big boy leagues. If he explains that concept and then goes, because what do you think typically happens whenever people like try going into a foreign market without any like actual point of contact to like be in the biggest rooms? And then before the other guy can even speak, then you go, oh, well, obviously they're not able to get into the biggest rooms. But just that millisecond of hesitation of pausing after you ask the question makes him answer it in his own mind. But then you don't make him answer it because then you would feel like an idiot. And so like, or he'd feel like you're treating him like an idiot. And so you ask the question, then you pause for half a second. He has to internalize an answer, and then you immediately move on.
You know, a couple years of hedging strategies for you, did some bond offerings for you, you kind of just did everything exactly right. You probably wouldn't be saying, let me think about it right now. You'd say, Jordan, just take over the hedging. Am I right about that?
Look, if we had a relationship, yeah.
Of course, I get that. You don't know me, and I don't have the track record. So kind of, let me just reintroduce myself to you a little bit, tell you about myself, what I stand for. Again, my name is Jordan Belfort, and I've been with LMK for about 6 years now, okay? And I'm one of the top salesmen at the company, and I am a salesman, by the way. I pride myself on actually going out there and going after the people that I know I can help, okay? But one thing I do is I put my clients' needs above everything else, and I work literally round the clock tirelessly. I'm not an analyst, I'm not an investment banker, okay? But I literally will go at it like I'm like a researcher of these people, and I will find the absolute best person in my stable. We have three areas of excellence, right? Banking, finance, and asset management, right? I will literally go and comb 3,500 employees to find the exact person that knows your business well, the exact program that best fits your needs, and I keep it simple. I mean, I'm here to not just put you into any program, but to hold your hand every step of the way. Guide you in, guide you out, okay, a phone call away. And, as far as LMK goes, again, long-term relationships, that's all we've been built on. We're I think, the oldest or second oldest merchant bank in all of
Notice how he's doing palms up like this. Why? Because it makes it's an obvious gesture. It's like, this is obvious. I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but like I have to say it anyways. It's very obvious, and the palms up makes it a lot more open. There's been many, many studies that were done where they put an audience of people and they had 3 speakers inside of them. They swapped the audience every single time, but it was the exact same demographic. One of them, the person would come in and they would be speaking with their palms down, right? And these people, they would ask the speaker to describe them after. And they were always described as controlling, a little bit angry, a little bit frustrating. Then they would have another speaker come in and point. So they're pointing around, you need to know this, you need to understand this is why this happens, etc. And they would ask them to describe them after. And they always labeled them like narcissistic, super angry, super controlling, not happy. Very bad terms if you're a speaker on a fucking stage. And the third guy would come in and he would speak with all of his palms up. So it's like, yeah, you guys need to understand this. Like, you need to know how this works. And they always described him as a lot more pleasant, a lot more open to learning from him. Because very open body language. It's a lot more safe. And so Jordan doing this right now where it's like, yeah, this is me, this is the company I work for, this is how I treat my clients, this is what I do. It makes it all seem very obvious and very, very open. And so it makes it a lot easier for the prospect to then buy in to what he is saying.
All of Australia, in business since 1886. So obviously we didn't get to where we are by burning our clients, okay? And we didn't get there by working on 15 or 30-day trials here, okay? And then saying, see you later. Obviously, we have earned our clients' trust by being right, by being diligent, by not risking their money, okay? And by also being there when there is a problem. So again, all I'm asking for is this. I mean, let me put it this way. What's the worst that can happen? Let's just say that I'm wrong, right? Let's say you give me a month, okay, and we hedge, we work.
Again, he's minimizing. Now he's very directly asking, this is a little bit more direct than I would do it. He's very directly asking, what's the worst that can happen? Because now the guy has to essentially think about the worst case scenario, which is not even that bad to begin with. So it makes him more compelled to actually want to do it. The only way that this can backfire, and this is where you have to be very careful with this, and the reason why I wouldn't use it, is as soon as you go, what's the worst that can happen? What is the prospect now thinking about? The worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is not something they want to fucking happen. And so I don't want him to think about that whatsoever. I want to flip it always to the positive. What happens if it goes right? What happens if it goes well? But if you have the perfect tonality, et cetera, and you frame it perfectly, this can still work as well.
$5 to $10 billion through a hedging strategy here, okay? And let's say at the end of the day, you don't make any more money. Let's say you lose 1 basis point on the whole thing. I'm wrong. You say, Jordan, you're just full of it, didn't work, and you fire me. Is that going to put you in the poorhouse as a company, honestly?
Look, probably not. I mean, I have to see the numbers, but
no, it's not going to kill you, right? Right. And on the upside, let's say I am right, which I know.
Now he's ending it. Now he's ending it with the upside. The best case scenario. Well, if it goes well, this happens right before he goes into the pitch. Why? Because he wants to end him on a positive note mentally, so that's what he's thinking about, recency bias.
I can show you a 25% return. And you're like, Jesus Christ, this guy actually saved me, $27,000 on a small amount of money. It's not going to make you the richest company in Australia, right? Right. Not going to make you rich, not going to make you poor. But it will serve as a benchmark for future business. And then you'll know you have a guy that knows what he's doing, okay? And from there, we can work bigger and better down the road. So all I'm asking for again is this. 1 shot, give me 30 days, okay? If I'm wrong, you fire me as your broker, okay? But if I'm right, not only am I going to want you to do bigger and better, but I want some referrals too, because that's my business.
Sound fair enough?
Give me a shot.
So look, it sounds interesting. Here's my concern.
Okay.
So we get into business. Who else am I going to be dealing with? You're a big company. Am I going to always get you each time? I mean, you're going to bring another product specialist. Do I have to build trust with them? I know what it's like with bigger banks, and that's why we prefer to keep with a small relationship bank. I don't want that hassle.
No, I totally get that. And by the way, just so you know, we have an interest. LMK is interesting for one sense, but we are a big bank. But we're not an ANZ or an NAB where it's so ridiculous and impersonal, okay? Where it's like, you're dealing with 1,000 faces in the customers. You call the recording up and press 1. Oh yeah, we can call you between 12 and 12:01, right? It's not that, right? We're a merchant bank, and it's a bit different, which is more like a family banking model, which is why I really believe it.
Because they're a family company.
I believe it fits so well with your business model, the organics.
Made them feel familiar.
We are an older line. We start off, in fact, in the cattle. We actually started off in commodities. That's why we built our business around commodities, and from there we went into banking as a result of the hedging. So that's why we're the #1 company about hedging and commodities, which is why I think it's such a perfect fit. But in terms of me, you'll only be dealing with me. And if there's someone else I want you to meet, they'll be with me. In other words, if I say I got a guy who's has a new algorithm that's going to allow us to make an extra 7 basis points a month on the turn, I'm not going to say, hey, the guy's come with me. I'll have him come with me, or we can have dinner, whatever it might be. But it's not going to be 30 faces. There's going to be me and only someone else if I believe that person, okay, can help with the conversation. But if you only want to meet me, hey, we can just be the two of us. But again, all I'm asking for is this. I'm asking to get married right now, okay? I believe in starting small, because I know I can prove myself to you. If I was here saying to you, I want all your business fire tight and do this, do that, right? You'd say, get the fuck out of here, right? Okay, but I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I'm confident if you just see a little bit of what I could do, we can use that as a benchmark to go forward. So again, I'm asking for 1 shot, 30 days, and believe me, you're going to be a client for life. Sound fair enough?
Look, I have to see the numbers, but it sounds reasonable.
Perfect. So let's open up the account now, and there we go. Okay? Okay?
Thank you.
So obviously this video covered a little bit more of the high level psychology behind what he's doing and showed you more conversational ways of asking a lot of the questions you might have heard online or even inside of Impact. But if you want to see the more fully in-depth breakdown of all of the psychology behind sales and understand why Jordan's team himself brought me in to train their B2C clients, I'm on a mission to make sales education accessible to everybody, and so I'm going to leave a link to the group down below. We've now crossed, I think, 65,000 members. In there's all the scripts, all the psychology training you need, offers companies, influencers you could start selling for as soon as tomorrow, making commission as long as you were good enough, and even literal sales call recordings directly from me and my partner Yash, who made $126,000 a month in commissions at 18 years old. So go to the description below, and I'll see you on the other side. Sound fair enough? Have a blessed rest of your day.